Tonight, a warning from Iran's supreme leader to the thousands demonstrating against the presidential election. Stop now, or you will be held accountable. And in an exclusive interview with CBS News, President Obama voices new support for the protesters and rejects charges that the U.S. is meddling in Iran's internal affairs.
This notion that somehow these hundreds of thousands of people who are pouring into the streets in Iran are somehow responding to the West or the United States, that's just not going to fly.
I'm Russ Mitchell. Also tonight, Nestle recalls 300,000 cases of its refrigerated Toll House cookie dough after evidence of E. coli contamination shows up in products across 29 states. And from enemies to friends, the story that keeps getting better.
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
And good evening. Katie is off tonight. The stage is set for a showdown on the streets of Tehran. Demonstrators angry over the disputed presidential election intend to go ahead with another massive rally tomorrow. That's in spite of today's warning from Iran's supreme leader, who told tens of thousands gathered for Friday prayers those who break the law by marching will be held accountable for all the violence, bloodshed, and rioting. Elizabeth Palmer begins our coverage this evening in Tehran.
A heaving sea of the faithful packed Tehran University's mosque. Enthralled to find themselves so close to Iran's holiest man, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Thousands who couldn't squeeze in listened outside in the surrounding streets. All week, Iran's state media have been saying the political unrest was incited by foreign plotters, including Americans. So we chose to observe from a quieter side street.
On the face of it, the Friday prayer ceremony is a religious occasion. But in spite of the thousands of devout who came to hear the Supreme Leader, everybody knows this is a pivotal political moment.
Would he back down or crack down? The answer when it came couldn't have been clearer. The results of an election come from the ballot box and not the street, the Supreme Leader told the crowd. And he defended President Ahmadinejad's landslide win last Friday. Our system, he said, has no room for fraud. Then, referring to the vast protest rallies that have swept through Iran's major cities all week, he said arm wrestling in the streets is not right. Put a stop to it, or those involved will be held accountable. That's a warning the violent Basij militia and maybe even Iran's fearsome Republican Guard could be unleashed against demonstrators. Tonight, one of the other opposition candidates, Mehdi Karoubi, has signaled he's not willing to compromise. In an open letter, he's calling once again for a fresh election. Every night this week, the cry, Allahu Akbar, God is great, has rung from the rooftops. The same cry that rallied revolutionaries to overthrow the government in 1979. Tonight, opposition supporters are at it again, at another watershed moment in Iran's history, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Elizabeth Palmer, CBS News, Tehran.
Back home, Congress jumped into the battle as both the House and Senate today condemned Iran's crackdown on demonstrators and its interference with the internet. Some in Congress have criticized President Obama's more measured response. And today, Harry Smith spoke exclusively with the president, and Iran was on his mind. Good evening, Harry.
Russ, good to be with you. The president had three specific groups in mind he was trying to communicate with. First, the Iranian hierarchy. Second, his critics at home who are suggesting he's not doing enough. And third, the people on the streets of Tehran who are risking their lives to protest the results of last week's election.
Do you have a message for those people on the street?
I absolutely do. First of all, let's understand that this notion that somehow these hundreds of thousands of people who are pouring into the streets in Iran are somehow responding to the West or the United States, that's an old distraction that I think has been trotted out periodically. And That's just not going to fly. And I'm very concerned, based on some of the tenor of, and tone of the statements that have been made, that the government of Iran recognize that the world is watching, and how they approach and deal with people who are, through peaceful means, trying to be heard, will, I think, send a pretty clear signal to the international community about what Iran is and is not. We respect Iran's sovereignty, and we respect the fact that ultimately the Iranian people have to make these decisions. And I think ultimately the Iranian people will obtain justice.
People in this country say you haven't said enough, that you haven't been forceful enough in your support for those people in the street, to which you say?
To which I say the last thing that I want to do is to have the United States be a foil for those forces inside Iran who would love nothing better than to make this an argument about the United States. That's what they do. That's what we're already seeing. We shouldn't be playing into that. There should be no distractions from the fact that the Iranian people are seeking to let their voices be heard. What we can do is bear witness and say to the world that the incredible demonstrations that we've seen is a testimony to, I think, what Dr. King called the arc of the moral universe. It's long, but it bends towards justice.
What the White House wants to make sure of is that it does not become a scapegoat for either any of the hierarchy in Iran, either the Ayatollah or Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. And that's why his words were so measured and so clear. Russ?
Harry Smith at the White House, thank you very much. And you can see all of Harry's exclusive interview with President Obama beginning Monday on The Early Show as they talk about North Korea, the economy, and Dick Cheney. To health news now, and a warning about a popular cookie dough. Today, Nestle voluntarily recalled its Toll House cookie dough after it was linked to E. coli bacteria. Since March, some 65 people have gotten sick in 29 states, apparently after eating it raw. More now from Priya David.
Across the nation, grocery stores are pulling 47 different Nestle cookie dough products because of fears that eating the dough raw is linked to an outbreak of one of the most dangerous foodborne illnesses, E. coli. No one has died, and the FDA is still looking for the exact source of contamination. Of the 65 people sickened, 25 have been hospitalized, 7 with serious complications, including kidney failure.
This particular strain of E. coli can make you very sick. Your kidneys can shut down, and you can actually die.
The victims range from 2 years old into their 60s. 75% are women.
You may think, well, it's cookie dough, all I need to do is to bake it and it'll be fine. Don't do that either.
Nestle says it warns its customers not to eat uncooked dough because it contains raw ingredients. That warning has been largely ignored as cookie dough has become a popular treat. The recall is for all varieties of Nestle Toll House refrigerated cookie dough, including flavors such as chocolate chip and peanut butter. Not affected, Nestle says, are already baked cookies, individual chocolate chips, and ice creams containing cookie dough such as Edy's and Dreyer's. High-profile food safety issues have plagued the nation in recent years. Earlier this year, peanut butter contaminated with salmonella may have contributed to the death of 9 people and sickened 700 more in 46 states. In a 2006 E. coli outbreak linked to spinach, 3 people died and 199 became ill in 26 states.
These illnesses can be really dangerous.
Nestle has temporarily stopped production of raw cookie dough items. The company says it's waiting for the all clear from the FDA before it starts mixing new batches. Priya David, CBS News, New York.
Up next on tonight's CBS Evening News, the trial that's the talk of Europe. Is this young American just an innocent college student or a cold-blooded killer? Billionaire R. Alan Stanford is known for his lavish lifestyle, but federal prosecutors say it was all a big lie. Today, Stanford was charged with running a huge Ponzi scheme. He's accused of stealing $7 billion from investors, in part by bribing the chief banking regulator for the Caribbean island of Antigua. The regulator is also charged, along with 3 of Stanford's top aides. If convicted, Stanford could face 250 years in jail. To Italy now, in a murder trial the whole world is watching. An American student is accused, along with her ex-boyfriend, of killing her roommate. Today, the young woman's mother took the stand. Peter Van Sant of 48 Hours Mystery has been following the case from the beginning.
Etta Mellis, the mother of accused killer Amanda Knox, fought her way into a courthouse today to testify on her daughter's behalf in what has become Italy's trial of the century.
She's absolutely innocent. There's no doubt in my mind, never has been, that she's had nothing to do with this.
Knox, an honor student from Seattle, was studying in Perugia in November 2007 when her 21-year-old British roommate, Meredith Kercher, was discovered murdered in the house they shared. British journalist Nick Pisa.
There were 47 separate wounds, bruises, scratches, cuts. The police and prosecution have always insisted that this was a sex game that had gone horribly wrong.
Police became suspicious of Knox and her boyfriend, Raffaele Sollecito. During questioning, investigators say Amanda signed a statement admitting she was in the house when Meredith was killed. She also falsely accused a local bar owner as being the killer.
But why would Amanda lie to the police? Well, it turns out that her so-called confession came after an all-night, 14-hour interrogation in which she was denied food, water, sleep, and legal representation. And according to recorded testimony in court, Amanda says she was hit during the questioning.
I was hit in the back of the head by one of the police officers who said she was trying to help me remember the truth.
I was very, very scared because they were treating me so badly. I didn't understand why.
Private investigator Paul Ciolino spent weeks in Italy looking into the case for 48 Hours Mystery.
They psychologically terrorized her until she signed it.
He says all the prosecution's forensic evidence is inconclusive.
They don't have a case. There's no physical evidence. There's no eyewitness testimony. There's no motive.
In fact, Ciolino says the real killer is Rudy Guede, whose DNA and bloody fingerprints were found in Meredith's room. Police believe Amanda and Raffaele joined Guede in the sex orgy that led to Meredith's death. Guede was tried separately earlier this year and found guilty of Meredith's murder.
Rudy Guede raped and murdered Meredith Kercher. Amanda and Raphael never laid eyes on Rudy, never met with him, and never hung out with him. Didn't know him.
The trial's expected to last into the fall. If convicted, 21-year-old Amanda Knox could face life in prison. Peter Van Sant, CBS News, New York.
Up next, Phil Mickelson and his wife Amy. Why golf fans are rooting for both. Better weather allowed golfers to complete round 1 of the U.S. Open today on New York's Long Island. Tiger Woods, forced off the course yesterday by a downpour, finished his round at 74. That is 4 over par. He is 10 strokes behind the leader, Mike Weir, who shot a 64 today. After the first round, Phil Mickelson was tied for 7th place with a 1 under par round of 69. But as critical as this major is to any professional, it's probably not the most important thing on Mickelson's mind. From Bethpage, here's Jeff Glor.
Phil Mickelson has spent most of his career playing in someone else's shadow. This week's no different. But instead of answering endless questions about Tiger Woods, all anyone here can talk about is Phil's wife, Amy.
It's hard for me to see somebody that is such a good person go through something so difficult.
Last month, the 37-year-old mother of 3 was diagnosed with breast cancer. Through all her husband's highs,
Mickelson, this is a nightmare right here,
and his heartbreaks, Amy and the kids have been an unmistakable presence.
We love you, Amy!
Now, an outpouring of support. At the recent Colonial Tournament, a wave of pink for breast cancer awareness overtook golf's usual green. support that continues this week at the Open.
For Phil's wife, Amy.
Yeah.
You're from Denver?
Denver, Colorado, yes, sir.
With the pink purse?
With the pink purse.
That for Amy?
Yes, that's for Amy.
Two-time breast cancer survivor Terry Walters is a volunteer in charge of the grandstands here.
You cannot understand, and there's really no words to make anybody understand what the support means.
The Mickelson family battle has brought extraordinary attention to this issue. An estimated 193,000 American women will be diagnosed with breast cancer this year, the most common cancer in women by far, 27% of all cases. 40,000 women will die from the disease this year.
A lot of people know about breast cancer, but until it hits close to home, you don't really realize what people do go through. So to see it publicized through someone like Phil Mickelson, I think it really does make a difference.
Please welcome Phil Mickelson.
While Amy was unable to make it to the Open, she insisted Phil play, and he finished the first round tied for 7th place. Amy's made it clear she'd like something even better.
She would like to have a silver trophy in her hospital room, so I'm going to try to accommodate that.
When this tournament's over, he's announced he'll take an extended break. The second best player in the world, putting family first. Jeff Glor, CBS News, Farmingdale, New York.
Family was also on President Obama's mind today. With Father's Day coming up Sunday, he invited some Washington area fathers and sons to a barbecue on the South Lawn. His theme, when young men become parents, take the job seriously and be there for your kids. Inside the White House, he held a town hall with other dads.
When my daughters were born, I made a pledge to them and to myself that I would do everything I could to give them some things I didn't have. And I decided that if I could be one thing in life, it would be to be a good father.
No one can really emphasize how important it is for a father to be involved in their child's life. It's just as important as the mother.
The issue has particular importance for the president. He was only 2 years old when his own father left the family. And Harry Smith will discuss fatherhood and its responsibilities in more of his exclusive interview with the president on the CBS News Magazine Sunday morning. Assignment America is next. Enemies in war, friends in peace. This time, the sequel is better than the original. Okay, the title of this next story could be Wait, There's More. Steve Hartman with a new chapter in tonight's Assignment America.
There he is. How do you make a story that was already as good as it gets get even better?
Welcome to America.
Hold tight, and I'll tell you in a minute. In case you missed our story last week, Nguyen Hong Mi and Dan Cherry are long-lost enemies. This is a History Channel recreation of their epic dogfight. Cherry was piloting the American F-4. Hong Mi was flying the North Vietnamese MiG, until Cherry blew it out from under him.
I got him.
As you might imagine, it's hard to make up after that kind of fight. But a few years ago, the two men were reunited on a Vietnamese TV show. Jerry Springer would have been sorely disappointed.
He had a very firm handshake, and he says, "Welcome to my country. I'm glad to see that you're in good health, and I hope that we can be friends."
And those weren't just words. After the show, Hong Mi invited Dan back to his home. Dan held his grandson, and the war went away. Today, the men are best friends. Just a few weeks ago, Hong Mi came to visit Dan at his home in Bowling Green, Kentucky. The trip was mostly pleasure, but the men hoped it would also serve a more serious purpose. In fact, our first story ended with that very message.
We hope that the fact that we've been able to reconcile our differences might somehow help Vietnam veterans on both sides.
Although I didn't know it at the time of our interview, Dan and Hong Mi actually had one particular veteran in mind, someone they thought they could especially help. For the last 37 years, John Stiles has been trying to forget Vietnam. He says his case of photos is hidden up here for a reason.
It brings back uncomfortable memories.
In January of '72, John was flying reconnaissance missions when his plane was shot down. He always thought it was ground flak that got him, but Hong Mi had evidence to the contrary. Most notably, that round red medal.
That means that he had shot somebody down.
And that was you.
Yeah.
Understandably, John wasn't sure he wanted to meet Hong Mi. He was nervous he wouldn't know what to say. Although, in the end, he didn't have to say anything. The two men just looked at each other until finally, once again, the war went away.
It's this huge release of weight I don't have to carry around anymore. I mean, it's gone. And it was wonderful. It was just absolutely wonderful. So.
Over the next few hours, they talked about planes, toasted their grandchildren, and showed war for what it often is, a disagreement between friends who just haven't had a chance to meet. Steve Hartman, CBS News, New York.
And that's the CBS AV News for this Friday. For Katie Couric, I'm Russ Mitchell. Jeff Glor will be here tomorrow. I'll see you on Sunday. Have a great weekend. Good night.